Thank you for attending the mental wellness panel. I'm really excited to be here. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and I think to all of our hearts. I'm joined by three excellent individuals here who have worked with students for quite some time in the collegiate esports space, and I'm sure have worked through many mental wellness challenges and opportunities through their time. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Let's start with Travis.
Okay, cool. I'm Travis Lynn, coach at Shawnee State University. I am also a game engineering faculty member. I've been here for a long, long time. I can't remember when I started. It's been forever. I've been with the program as a head for this will be going into my second year now. So,
cool. And Eugene?
My name is Eugene Fryer. I am the director of esports and gaming at Texas Wesleyan University. I've been here in that role since 2018. And I was an assistant to students for 3 years before that at my institution, and then worked at a few other schools for about 12 years before that.
Cool. And Chase, take us away.
Awesome. Coach Nuke, Chase Newcomb. I am the director of esports at St. Ambrose University, Davenport, Iowa. I'm on the competition council for NACE, and I am an overall young esports professional, very involved in the industry, and I am currently pursuing my master's at St. Ambrose in organizational leadership.
Awesome. Well, super privileged to have all three of you guys here. I'm very honored. And yeah, I'm Josh Buchanan, the director of esports at Alvernia University. And before I came here about 6 months ago now, I was the head esports coach at Ashland University in Ashland, Ohio for about 3 years. So we have a whole bunch of topics, I'm sure way more than we could possibly cover in roughly the hour we have. So we'll jump right in. So I think one thing that we really wanted to touch on right away is how can we use esports as a tool for mental wellness? I think students across the country, whether they're involved in esports or not, deal with mental wellness, and it's an important thing to focus on. How can we use esports to help our students work in that area? Anyone want to start?
I'll take it off before Eugene takes off because I know he's usually quick to the gun. So in terms of working in mental wellness, there's obviously some areas you can get involved with to ensure that you're living the best version of yourself. And really, when you consider mental wellness, there's a lot of self-discipline that goes into that, and making sure that you're making enough time for yourself. You're eating right, you're sleeping right, having a schedule and a routine is super important. I would also say, something that we do at St. Ambrose, we'll probably get into a little bit later, is meditation required before competing. I think that it gets you in the right mindset, and it sets the precedent for getting into flow state really easy. So those would probably be my main points.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Chase. Eugene, Travis?
Yeah, I think and thank you for that, Chase. I think a big thing with me is, in addition to what Chase said, just and this is a thing that I think we all know, but the relevance of it all. Like the students don't often seek the help they need until it's like, oh my God, I need help right now. But the students that are interested in our programs are getting that information from sources that they trust, and it's able to be leveraged, whether it's through mandatory, like we're going to meditate before all of our practices, like Chase said, or when we're going through our practices, we're going to talk about what some of the pros do, and it hits on these things that are positive that are going to help you out. I think that relevance piece really helps kind of sell it to some students that maybe otherwise would seek out this kind of assistance.
Cool.
So just to add, my biggest thing with esports and using it for mental wellness is just community in general. There's a lot of people out there that don't usually maybe interact with as many people as normally, or they're just the person that just kind of chills in the back of the class, and then they go home and they do their work or whatever it might be. But with esports, you can reach a bigger audience and bring a lot of people in that normally wouldn't go outside of their comfort zone, and then you can actually help them make those essentially connections and make friends, and helps them in general know that there's other people out there that they can communicate with.
Yeah, and I just wanted to echo Travis's point. I was going to say something almost exactly the same thing, that I think community and connectedness is huge, and I think if esports can be a vehicle for that, that is amazing. And I think the great part about all of our NACE programs is that we do have on-campus locations where students can connect and meet each other who have those similar interests. Oh yeah, Travis's area looking really nice in the background, by the way. I just wanted to throw that out there. Way nicer than my apartment. But yeah, so I think a next point that is definitely relevant to talk about is it's not just about the students; it's about the staff, the directors, and the coaches. I'm sure almost all of us work 50 plus hours a week, sometimes even more than that, often in multiple different roles on our campus. And that can be a lot. What do you guys do to help with the mental wellness either of yourselves or of your coaches and staff members for your program?
I'll kick this one off again as well. For myself, I am, and it's hard, especially for some of us that went into esports as a hobby and is now doing it as a career, right? It's really important to separate your careers and your hobbies. I think once you have the goal of making your hobby a career and you're living that dream, that's great. Now you need to explore your other hobbies, because being able to go home and kind of step away from esports and just play either single player games, or I'm really active in playing ping pong. I play ping pong in a local league here in town. Getting out and remembering to reconnect with other parts of yourself, I think, is really important. So kind of education as well, secondary education, I think, is really focused on finding yourself as a person. So remembering if you have younger staff members, this is maybe their first time working in esports, or this is new to them, helping them explore those other parts of themselves that they don't know yet. And so something that I like to do with my staff is sort of a big way to help with their mental health is we go out for lunch every week or every other week, and I try to pay for it out of pocket, not out of program budget, to show them that I really value their time. And it's not required. They don't have to go. It's just they can go if they want to and hang out with us, and we go out and just have fun after work. And just talk about life and really try to ask those self-reflective questions that are going to have an active engagement and sort of a conversation and add to that camaraderie.
I think perspective is a big thing with this too. I know when we're in the middle of seasons and it feels like we have to do this and we have to do this and all these things happen. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it is. But sometimes it's not the case. We don't deal, fortunately, with life and death stuff very often. I think remembering that is very helpful. So you do step away. I can't tell you the amount of times I've heard, even this summer, from people that were reaching out to me to set up meetings, and I was like, hey, I can't because I'm going to be out of the office then. And it's a big thing for me. If I have like me time or me and my wife time out of the office, I'm not working. And that doesn't happen as much as I would like during peak times of the season. But when that happens, I'm going to remove myself. Call me if you need me. And I heard from so many other folks in the esports and collegiate esports space, oh my gosh, take time off. And it's like, yeah, I get that we're joking about it, but like, take time off. Like, you can't help the students that you're there to serve if you're not good. So that perspective is a really big thing with me. Like Chase said too, I have the games that I play. I'll say this too. When the Burning Crusade Classic came out, I took a week off of work. Me and my buddies that played back in BC, it was like, yeah, we're going to level. And we're going to start running some stuff, and it was like, I was still talking to some students on Discord, but that allowed me to recharge and refresh so I could back to it like when I got back in the office.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely got to take that time for yourself. One thing I do is I actually have an alarm. I missed it today because we're at this panel. But 3 p.m. Eastern time, my phone actually goes off and it plays a song called A-OK. And I actually go for a mental health walk. And listen to the song, and we have a beautiful river flood wall that we have that has murals all over it. And I just look at the art as I'm actually walking and take that time for myself. And then anytime I go out to lunch or for dinner, if I on campus or at the arena for too long, I'll make sure to go and take it outside anytime I can, just so I'm disconnected for that time being, that I'm not worried about checking my phone or checking the internet or Discord. I make sure that I have some time outside for myself, that I'm just enjoying life and enjoying the experience of what I'm actually in.
Nice. Awesome. And also, I just wanted to bounce off of what Eugene said about having that perspective. And I think this kind of relates to our past question as well, in that, we're not dealing with life or death things. And I think oftentimes, because we're so busy, we're kind of in action mode. Like, we're in operationalized mode. Like, you need help, you go here, I go here, you go there. Let's get everyone organized. I think so many times with our coaches, with our staff, and with our students, it's important to just take some time to just listen to them, just hear them out. If they need to talk, just let them talk to you, and that's something I am definitely guilty of not doing, or not even understanding that someone will do that for me too. So definitely something I thought was worth touching on. I see lots of questions in the chat. Definitely keep them coming. Depending on how many we get for the last, I would say maybe 10, 15 minutes, we'll make sure to spend some time doing some Q&A. So we will get to those for sure. So I guess the next topic that I think is worth touching on is what systems do you guys have in place in your program to support mental wellness? Or, and I guess a kind of a cool question, at what point do you know when it's time to hand it off to somebody else? And do you have someone on campus that you hand it off to, or do you guys have systems in place where you can recommend them to some other medical professional?
So yeah, I can kick this one off so it's someone different this time. So under athletics, our number one thing for coaches is that we're in charge of the moral, mental, and physical health of students. So it plays a big part in just being any coach on campus, not just with esports. So our facilities, of course, we have athletic trainers and we have a counseling center for them to go to, and those are all things that they have access to. But as a coach myself, I often take my time and do one-on-ones with students every semester, every couple of months to make sure that they're okay. Another thing we do right before practice time is we'll sit with them as they come in one-on-one, and I'll just talk about their week and how they're feeling about their homework and their classes or anything, just to let them vent anything that they might have on the top of their head before we even get into practice. This allows them to de-stress from those things, even if they have like a mile-long thing of like homework. They at least have vented that out to somebody so that they can think about it, and then I can help them with any resources that they might need, or get them to a tutor if they have something, or if they have test is coming up, I can help them decide where they put that time into so that they can help relieve some of that stress. So,
sure, Chase and Eugene.
Yeah, I think along those lines too, and I'm very relational in how I connect with people, especially with our students. But I understand that what I'm going to say sounds very transactional. That's not the way I look at things, though. But like pouring yourself into your students' lives, showing that you care, will build that social capital, so they can tell you before it's even gotten to a bad spot. That's one thing that I found helpful throughout my career, kind of just period. But as far as actual support networks on our campus, we're very fortunate at Texas Wesleyan to have our community counseling center that's, like most universities, it's on campus for students to go to. But we have several staff members that are just want to talk to students and listen to them. So not when they're at the crisis point of, I need to talk to somebody, it's a self-harm situation, or I'm breaking down, but like, I'm struggling right now. It's not such a situation on our campus for like, well, if Eugene's not there, just wait till he gets back. It's, that there are people in the student's office that aren't just there for conduct. Like, they want to talk and they care. There are people in our academic advising area that are like big brothers and big sisters to a lot of our students. So what we have found successful is getting our students connected a lot outside of our department as well, because I'm the only full-time staff member right now. That makes it less of a situation with mental health, but also other stuff of, if I'm not there, nothing happens. Because our student staff can help with that sometimes, but don't always navigate that. But just getting them connected to other folks on campus has helped us a lot, in addition to the counselors that are there to help as well.
Yeah. Josh, one more time, can you repeat that for me? I'm still struggling to pull up the speaker notes.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. Yeah, so I just wanted to ask if you had any support systems on your campus or resources that you guys utilize either within your team or separately, and also kind of touching on like, at what point do you decide it's time to hand this off to someone else, whether that be a medical professional, a counseling professional, something like that?
So, luckily, I come from the background of housing and residence life in my undergrad. I was a resident assistant, so I had some training prior to about when and where to kind of identify those indicators, I would say. In terms of the students on my team, the support systems that we have in the program, every single one of our teams has a captain and a manager. Now, going into this next year, we're having coaches for every single one of our individual teams, and the captain's role is going to be more for that leadership role on the team. So maybe not every single team has a captain if it's not necessary. But I think that the structure of having individual points of contacts for your team is further really pushed through the mental health and wellness of a team. If they feel like they're not connected with anyone on their team, then they're not going to speak up about anything. And if they feel like they're walking on eggshells, they're going to feel disconnected from the program as a whole. So making sure that our boot camp is solid really sets the precedent. And for any new coaches that are sitting in on this session, whether it's a boot camp or maybe a day or two long process of just your teams hanging out, I would put a strong focus on sort of the social well-being of the program first, and show that that's something that you care about, so that later in the year, if they're feeling overwhelmed, it's a much easier conversation to have. But I'd also like to really go back to what Eugene said about getting the students connected outside of the program and make sure that they're well connected on campus, make sure that they have other areas that they feel that they can be a part of, because you don't want their whole collegiate experience to be just centered around their their esports interactions. It's important, don't get me wrong, but it's not everything. And if it seems like it is everything to them, it can become all consuming, and then their mental health is going to deteriorate, because if esports is not going well, or if you just lost your last game of the season, that's now going to affect the rest of your semester moving forward, because you don't have your other support systems. So we do have very close ties with our counseling center. I do invite the Student Success Center to come to our boot camp every year, and our wellness and fitness trainers on campus, as well as our counseling center, some of our counselors, to come in and speak during our boot camp and sessions. We have a week-long boot camp that's about 7 hours a day, and the first 3 hours are really informational for mainly freshmen and sophomores, and new people to our program. But having something like that where they connect with those resources early, I think is invaluable.
Cool. Awesome.
I just want to add some stuff.
Yeah, go for it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So they're just about the connecting on the outside of thing. We actually have a really cool program here that was started outside of the esports, but it's essentially for first generation students, or the first of their family to go to college. So what it is there's faculty and staff faculty and staff that are actually first generation themselves, that are actually paired as a mentor for any first generation student. So they always have a point of contact on campus outside of esports or anywhere else that they can go to, and they can help them and get them to the right place that they need to go to, or decide if, hey, you need to go to the counseling center or something more extreme. But for the most part, it's like, hey, I don't know how to schedule my classes, and that's what's stressing them out. And then they go to this mentor and then get that done. So having that direct access, I think, is a good point that everybody was touching on.
Cool. And I've actually seen a couple questions or comments in the chat that I think are relevant to the conversation, so I figured I'd integrate them in. I saw one question about if we think building different community teams or different clubs around other games would be a good way to kind of either help with your students' mental wellness in terms of like stress relief, or a way to get them connected with students outside of the team while also bonding with students in the team. Have any of you guys implemented anything like that, and have you seen success with that?
Yeah, I would say that we have a lot at Texas Wesleyan. My title is very intentionally the director of esports and gaming. So we have several student organizations under our department, a stream team and a content creation team, in addition to just doing what we can to bring people together, whether you're on the esports team, the stream team, on the tabletop role-playing D&D club, whatever it might be. How can we connect our students so they can share their passions with each other, or connect over passions that each other doesn't have? Like a good example is the captain of our Rocket League team and one of the players on our FIFA team about 2 years ago didn't play. Obviously, there's natural overlap with Rocket League and FIFA, but they didn't play the other game. So it was like they were in the room together just talking to BS and intentionally driving the conversation towards, well, have you played Rocket League? Have you played FIFA? Getting them to talk. Not a month later, they both tried out the other game. They didn't like it, but they both tried out the other game, and they were playing with the other person, and it was like that kind of connection. So we try to do stuff on that informal level, but all the way up to, I mentioned, we have what's called the Wesleyan Adventurers Guild, the tabletop role-playing group, getting students in our program out to play with the officers and members of that student organization that aren't in the esports part of the program, but also pulling our VP of Student Affairs has been a dungeon master before, so pulling him into those as well to increase those connections with our faculty and staff. So we have found pretty good success in that, honestly, and that's been a big reason our program has grown how it has over the past couple of years, but there's been a lot of positives that have come from that, interpersonally too.
Cool. Travis, Chase, have anything to add?
Honestly, I think it's great to have additional things on campus. I had to count this summer because I had to figure out everything gaming going on. We probably have 20 entities on campus outside of esports that do gaming-related events. So there's a ton of student-related clubs and everything. But my thing is to make sure that, one, we're not overwhelming students with too many events that they feel like they're obligated to go to. And then secondly, making sure that they're going to ones that they're going to have fun with. one of the things that we actually do here is it was actually hosted by some of our success advisors. Is they do something called Game On, and 3 times a semester they essentially host a taco bar, and they teach about interpersonal skills and life skills and empathy, and utilize video games and board games to teach about those life skills and those critical skills that you wouldn't normally have. And that's a really cool, fun experience that they don't feel stressed that they have to go to, because they're going to get free tacos or cheeseburgers or something like that, and they go for the food and they learn something that's going to help them along their way in their mental wellness. So that's something that we do here, and it was started by our success team. So I appreciate them, and I didn't have to run it.
So that's awesome. I love that concept. I think doing something fun like a trivia night, like at a local place, not like so you're doing it off site, you're not on campus, is really engaging, gets them taken out of that mindset. That's awesome. To add to what we do at St. Ambrose in regarding preparation for mental wellness, because and this is the big thing to consider when you're looking at mental wellness, in my opinion, and it's something that I talk about in our boot camp with our students. Someone asked in chat, our boot camp's only a week long. I say a week, it's like maybe 5 days. But mental wellness we often treat as something that you only treat when it's bad. And that's not the case. You shouldn't just be putting a Band-Aid on your mental well-being or physical well-being whenever it's bad. You should be doing it every single day so that you consistently feel better as a person, rather than, I need to address this because it's piling up, right? So something that I did is over the winter break of this past year, I send out feedback forms to my students every semester, and it kind of gives me a good vision and direction of where to go with the program in all aspects. And one of the biggest things that we had was students felt overwhelmed because there was they felt a lack of communication disseminated between coaches and managers and the teams. So to me, that said that the foundation of our program isn't as sturdy as I wanted it to be. So I created a 94-page manual for our esports program that I gave out to all of my leadership, captains, coaches, managers. Probably too much paper I printed, to be honest, but I gave it out to all of them, so they felt fully equipped with that information to help prepare their students in terms of their mental well-being and in terms of how they engaged with the program. So for instance, one of the sheets that we made in there was a game day routine, and everything you should do on a match day to prepare for the game, eating a couple hours beforehand, making sure you're listening to music that you like and you're engaging with, practicing and warming up, sitting down and meditating beforehand, not eating or having copious amounts of sugar or caffeine right before, making sure that you're healthy going into the match. Because afterwards, no matter what, if you go in with a healthy mindset and a healthy mentality, more likely than not, you're going to come out of that game, no matter the outcome, with a healthy mindset and a good mentality, which is going to help you in the future, especially if you're debriefing.
Awesome. Well, I actually have 2 more questions that I think are also relevant to the current topics. I figured I'd integrate those as well. One person asked, does anyone here hire or hope to hire a part-time or full-time mental health coach or professional specific to esports? I think we'd all love to do that for sure. I don't think anyone is going to say no, but definitely interested in hearing opinions there. And if you don't have those resources, or even if you do, Luke Keller asked, how would you assist student life and counselors at the university about understanding the differences that an esports student might, the challenges that they might have that are maybe different than a traditional student, and how can they best help with the esports aspect of that?
I think a lot of it for me that has been successful, and as a point of context, our school is very small. We're a 2,000 student campus, including graduate students. So I understand this plays a part in that. But whenever possible, especially during off seasons or during when things aren't as crazy at the end of a season, it is dog and pony show around campus time as much as possible. Going and talking to people, finding reasons that are valid to talk to faculty and staff on campus, but having it be a very intentional conversation from my side of things, showing what it is we're working on, doing some of the education that we all have to do. Sometimes it happens via email, the Esports, and it's like, that's not how you say it, but doing that in a kind way, in a polite and loving way, but also finding times to have follow-up conversations with people that ask me, how's the esports team doing? When I correct them to explain we have multiple teams, well, let's talk about it sometime. I would love to hear what y'all are working on too. So trying to do a lot of that to make sure that we're combating kind of the I think ignorance is sometimes seen as a negative thing. I think willful ignorance is negative, but ignorance, just not knowing, is very rampant on college campuses outside of esports programs. So trying to address that in very leading with love and people-focused ways has been very helpful for us. Because even the people that didn't quite get it wanted to understand, so would seek us out more. Or like, hey, one of your players is in my class. This is what's going on. Hey, is this normal for some of your players? Or is this normal for him? And that led to a lot more stuff like that happening.
Great. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
I'm just going to say I'm also a faculty, so I'm always engaged with everything in student life or in the counseling center or anything like that as a faculty member already. So anytime the word game appears, I get pulled into meetings to discuss things, regardless of where it is on campus. Any section, I just kind of happen to be in those conversations, and they actually are proactive about these things too. Specifically, since we have our game design degrees on campus, they're always coming to us and saying, "Hey, we want to set up a meeting to better understand not only your esports students but your gaming students and what kind of things they have." Because we're one of the only spaces on campus that has 24-hour access. They don't understand why we need that, and no one else does. But just explaining that, hey, even though it's 24-hour access, our guys still need sleep. But some of them are, first shift sleepers, and then they wake up, in the afternoon, and then that's when they go to class and then do your homework afterwards. So allowing them to understand those things and explaining those things to them and making sure that they understand those things as well, they're pretty proactive in those things. So I don't have as much struggles as other people do with those conversations. So we got kind of lucky here.
I just want to add to Eugene's point and what he said earlier about leading with love. I think that when you're engaging other people on campus and you're only engaging them when something is wrong, you're only talking to IT when the internet's down, and you're only getting a hold of student life when your students have bad grades, you're not really trying to bridge a connection. You're setting that example for your students. And that is where it's really important to disseminate esports coach and esports director. As an esports director, you are creating those relationships and you are showing and setting the example for how to engage with others on campus. So if your student catches you in the one of your what do you call it? Like student center eating, right? You're having lunch with maybe the dean of student life or someone else on campus, and they see that example and they see that you're connected on campus. That's going to push them to want to be more connected on campus if they see you as a role model and if they look up to you. So I think when it comes to a lot of mental well-being, the phrase you can't help anyone until you help yourself is so true, because if you are healthy yourself and if you're leading by that example, that's going to set more of an impact than anything else that you can do, any words that you say.
Awesome. Yeah. Once again, I think I was going to say pretty much exactly what Chase said. So I appreciate you saying it. So I didn't have to. Way better than I said it too. So thank you. And yeah, so I think we've touched on a lot of great points already, tackled a couple of questions. But one thing that we have not touched on yet, I don't think, is how the other players in your team can affect each other's mental health and mental wellness going forward. And that I think good leaders, positive energy spreads itself, right? Maybe some negative attitudes and toxicity can really hurt some other players' mental health, their motivation going forward. And I think I also wanted to just attach onto this question that the exposure that they get through social media and through Twitch can also have a large impact. I know when we first added our Fortnite team, many Fortnite streamers were expressing negative emotions about the game, expressing their frustration. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think our players felt that that was like a similar thing that they should do, right? Because they're role models. The professional players they looked up to were doing that. And I think that had a negative impact on our team culture that, we had to work through and kind of get around. So what have you guys done to kind of tackle both of those challenges, and how have you embraced the strong leaders and strong people on your team that are helping and create a better community that promotes better mental wellness?
So I'm going to kick off on this one because I know exactly how I'm going to answer. Once again, separating esports coach from director. If you're an esports director, you have one-on-ones with your students. You talk with your students engage with them in whatever capacity it may be. You make sure that you are hearing them voice their concerns. So if you're hearing your students' concerns, and that's where this comes up. And one of my one-on-ones, which last year my one-on-ones were only 20 minutes for each student, and I told them outside of that time if they needed to connect afterwards, we could connect afterwards and talk. This upcoming year, we're going to have a lot more staff at St. Ambrose, so it's going to be a lot easier for me to have 45 minutes to 1 hour one-on-ones, and that be a majority of my connections with my students, which is good. It gives us time to chat. But there was something that came up with our Battle Royale team, and the manager was telling me that they had practice earlier that week with the team, and one of the members was just he's very critical, he's very analytical, and he's not very socially aware sometimes that he is being too harsh, because he sees it as a natural precedent in his vision, right, that whatever he's saying is for the betterment of the whole team, no matter what he says. But once again, a lot of conflict resolutions or a lot of conflict situations arise and can be resolved through communication. There's just a lot of miscommunication, or it's just they're not giving the same type of communication that they're usually used to having. So what we did was I gave the student a chance to come in and talk with me one-on-one. I chatted with him. I chatted with other members of the team one-on-one. And then we sat down as a group and we wrote on a whiteboard. We all walked in, and it was during team practice. The rest of the team was practicing. I brought them in. I said, we're not leaving this room until we get everything out in the air. We are not leaving this room until everything's laid out, until we go through everything that needs to be talked about and needs to be said. I want you to use I feel statements. I don't want you to put words in other people's mouths. I just want you to talk about your feelings regarding this situation. And then up on the board, I wrote down the issue, and I said, everyone go up and write down what you think the issue is right now. And the student who was irritated at the other teammates went up and said, he was first, he said, I don't know. And everyone else afterwards went up and wrote communication. And I won't talk about everything we talked about because it was long and it was private, but at the end of the meeting, we basically got all the feelings out in the air. We talked about everything that we needed to. And I was more or less there to navigate the conversation. I didn't engage. They talked to each other. They didn't talk to me. They talked to each other. And afterwards, they felt so much better connected as a team. They felt like they had worked through some issues and they got their feelings out there. And sometimes it's hard to talk about your feelings, especially with a group of people that you just met. So they got their feelings out there. They were talking about it. And for the rest of the season, if there was an issue, that's how they resolved it as a team. They just got in a room together and they said, we're going to talk about this and we're going to be here until we get this out of the way, because we want to engage each other and work together, make sure that we can work together as a team.
We do a few different things. I'm a big believer in Tuckman's stages of group dynamics. Each group goes through a storming, norming, forming, and performing stage. So trying to be intentional with our actions going into each year to help course correct before there are issues, as weird as that might sound. So two things that we do for that. We set expectations at the beginning of every semester where I'll use our Overwatch team, for example. It's me and a program manager and then the players. We get everybody in the room. We talk about, this is after spending at least a few days getting connected and playing together. So it isn't people just having just met each other kind of, or not knowing each other yet. But me and the program manager leave the room. The players stay in the room. The players come up with what are our expectations of each other as players, and what are our expectations of the leadership of the program manager and the director. Me and the program manager come up with what are our expectations for each other and what are our expectations of the players, and then we get together and talk about it. We're very clear up front saying we can't guarantee we're going to be able to do everything you want. Like your expectation of me can't be bring pizzas every day, because I'm not going to be able to do that. But behavioral things we can work on, So that really sets the tone, and that's helped us avoid the players hold each other accountable before we have to step in a lot of times because of that. But obviously that doesn't always work. Another thing that we found great success with, especially with our team, and Chase, your example kind of made me think of this a little bit. I'm a big believer also in Clifton Strengths. The Gallup used to be called Strengths Quest, Strengths Finder. You take the self-assessment, it gives you your top 5 strengths. That helped us out a lot. Our captain for Overwatch is very command, very go. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do it now. We're going to execute. And one of our team leaders, who was one of our healers, and our captain was a tank, was very deliberative and very like, well, what about this? How do we think about and they would bash heads because the deliberative person thought the captain wasn't listening to him. The captain thought the deliberative person was being lazy and just didn't want to do stuff. But once we laid down, here are where your strengths are and here are where yours are, do you see how they're pulling away from each other? They were able to understand a lot better. It was never perfect after that, please don't get me wrong, but you could see them, especially the captain, you could see him thinking when he was trying because he wanted to say like, no, but he'd be like, I understand that you're saying that because you want to think things. And it just led to a lot better conversations that helped avoid big issues. And it was conflict, but conflict isn't always bad. It was people disagreeing with each other and us working towards a resolution together. So those are some things that have been very helpful for us.
Yeah, I mean, you're on the right page. Communication between all of it is super important. My example is similar to Overwatch, but a big proponent for me and something that propels me is two things that I have is one, platinum rule, treat others as they would like to be treated is a big thing for me. And then two is let's find solutions instead of discussing, we identified the problem already. We need to move on to find solutions of how we can establish where we're actually moving forward instead of going in a circular argument. So finding those solutions is important. And we had a similar thing. We had two Overwatch players. One was a tank, one was a DPS, and they butted heads freshman year. But eventually they started learning how to communicate with each other and how the other one liked to be treated. One was more, outgoing and very, extroverted, and the other one was very introverted. And they started becoming best friends over time, and they learned they were in the same majors, and they created study groups together and developed a best friend relationship. And now they're actually alumni, and they come back and help mentor the Overwatch team as much as possible. So talk about the struggles they went to so we can proactively prevent those things from happening in the future. So
we were
awesome. Oh, go ahead, Chase.
Yeah, I was just going to add real quick because we were talking about the tests that I guess you can use. Eugene was talking about them a little bit. I know that it's debatable sometimes, and some people find value in it and some people don't, but I'm sure everyone in here, if you haven't, the Myers-Briggs personality type tests, they are available online through 16personalities.com. Some of my students relate heavily with whatever type they get. Others of my students don't, and I preface the conversation by telling them you may find value in this, you may not. Another one that I like to personally use is the 5 Love Languages by Gary Chaplin, and it talks about heavily what you like to receive from other people and the type of love that you like to give. So there's gifts, there's personal compliments, there's spending time, there's a couple more, but I think both of those have value in their own areas and in their own regard. So if you're looking for those type of tests to do team building with your team, I'd recommend the 5 Love Languages more personally, but I have found value in doing that.
Awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to throw in that for me. I think you need to start pretty much all the way from the beginning, like in your recruiting. I think when I recruit a player, I instantly let them know like the kind of player I'm looking for my team is someone who wants to learn from their teammates, the person who wants to teach their teammates, and really wants to be bought in to the team and the whole experience. If that's not you, that's okay, but you're probably not the right fit for our program. And I think that helps set the tone from the very beginning. And then after that, I think it's really important that we do things, again, like we touched on before, outside of the game to help build those relationships, build that community, and I guess buy-in for each other. And I think that goes a long way. And I want to I tell all my players, there's the common saying, like, people don't care what you know until they know how much you care. And I think that is key. If your teammates know they care about you, then you can talk about things. You can talk things out and work out issues. For my programs, I was always so big on celebrating the wins and then working through the losses and the things you can struggle through. I think if you only talk about when you lose a game, it can get really hard mentally. It can feel like the team environment's down, where if you celebrate those wins and analyze those wins and point out, wow, you did incredible there, or even, wow, even though we won, we need to work on that. I think when you have that consistency, I think that helps a ton, at least in my experience. So that was really, really huge for my players at my program. So I definitely carry that through. And then I think the last thing, and Chase touched on it, the love languages. I suggest anyone who wants to read that, definitely read that. But I also kind of repurpose it and just remind my players that what makes you feel good and what lets you play your best might not be what someone else needs. So take the time to talk to your teammates, figure out not only what makes them feel good as people, but also like, I mean, there's a practical aspect to it as well. In that, like, if your teammates are feeling good, they can help you play them best as well. Some people might need that hype man in the middle of the game who's getting the team all pumped up. We used to have a guy on our Counter-Strike team who was definitely that guy, and it was amazing to see the energy, but it didn't work for everybody, right? Someone needs that calm presence that just stays kind of calm and positive in a more subtle way that helps them out. So definitely kind of trying to cater to your teammates' needs helps a lot, and it feels good when someone does that for you too. So definitely awesome points there. From
one other little thing I was going to add on that just real quick, and I think this is the thing that most coaches and directors do, but just in case there are some out there that don't, making sure that if you have players on your team that are that glue person, that like, hey, let's get together and let's that you activate them as much as possible. I think that's such a huge thing. One of the players for our Overwatch team that made the Overwatch team in our first year of the program and was like the last spot. Like, he was good enough to be on the team, but he knew he wasn't going to play that much. We talked about, you're not going to play that much, but like, he grew to be one of our team captains because he could rally people. He was connected with everybody, so he could do exactly what Josh was saying about like get hyped for this person, but also just like fist bump that person because that was what they needed. And some of my fondest memories still of our program are some of the trips. I like to eat. I'm a big guy, but like I like taking the team out and going to eat. But I also love when the students, back fans are really important in high school. I appreciate that. When the students want to go do something and invite me to it. And this player, Michael, I feel like if I hadn't done anything, he still would have done this, but he really was activated to bring people together. It was times that we went to Korean barbecue together, and we would sit there, 8 of us, 9 of us, for like 3 hours, just joking and the banter with each other and reliving the good stuff that happened and talking about, no, I think it's going to get better with that. And it was amazing. But it all came from, I think, the peer, like, hey, let's go do this kind of thing.
Absolutely. I got a guy on my team like that too. He just graduated, and we kind of like had a little tear when he left. Essentially, we called him the Bear Spirit, essentially, because he was there for every team. He was our Smite captain at the time, but he would go to Overwatch and be like, hey, Overwatch, if you need help or anything or need someone to fill today, I'll be there for you and I'll hype you up. He eventually started on our Overwatch team because he got so good too. So but he was willing to go out and help other people with communication because he was really good with it and would go with every team and make sure they learned communication skills between each other. He would go on every stream and make sure every stream got a hype person at least in chat. If he knew the game enough, he'd come in and commentate for him, so they had a commentator. But he was just there for anybody else that kind of needed to be there, and everybody uplifted him in the same way that he was uplifting them, and it allowed him to be fueled as much as he was fueling everybody else.
Awesome. Yeah, so we actually have quite a few topics left and not a lot of time, so I might combine a couple just to waste some time for some Q&A. So I think one thing that we already touched on a little bit was burnout. I think for now I'll probably skip over that one just because we touched on it a little bit already. But if anyone has questions about that, please feel free to message any of us at the end. Or if right now, if you guys want to type your socials or your information in the chat, please feel free to reach out to any of us with questions. But one thing that I think, or two things that I think are really worth touching on are how do we manage tilt in game? Definitely, I think we talked a lot about the lifestyle stuff and a lot of the stuff that people experience day to day, but tilt definitely very game specific. How do players work through that? What is it? And also, I think working through identity and ego. How do you manage your players' egos? Sometimes a player having an ego could be a good thing for their play, right? Having that confidence. Sometimes it can be really tough. How do you balance that? And how do you help a player kind of work through and learn from the experience of being on a team, being a player on their team be part of their identity, but then also having other parts of their identity that makes them who they are? And how do you balance that? So pretty loaded question. Apologies for that. Anyone want to take it?
I mean, I will. Chase will make fun of me for talking more again, but I like, honestly, even though not all the students in our program watch traditional sports, I use a couple of sports examples, and I got a new sports example a couple weeks ago I'm going to talk about with ego. But I think about Kobe Bryant a lot when he tore his ACL or tore his Achilles tendon, and some conversations that me and my friends had around then that was like, and I'm super summarizing a longer conversation that I have with students, but like, if you build your identity to be one thing and that goes away, what next? Like, so I'm a big believer that your identity shouldn't ever be just one thing that can be taken from you. So we talk to students about that a lot. Like, who are you? You know, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? I'm not a big believer of like 5-year plans or 10-year plans. I heard Neil Gaiman talk about this one time about like your goals being a mountain in the distance, and every decision that you have to make about your future, you figuring out, is that going to help me closer to the mountain or get me farther away from the mountain? So having like life conversations with our students like that has helped a lot in that way. But one thing, I think ego definitely can be helpful, but I think framing it to students as far as like, I heard Giannis mention this in the playoffs before the Bucks won. He said that ego is what you've done in the past. Look at all the stuff that I did. I was great doing that. I was awesome doing that. Pride is stuff in the future. Oh, I'm good. I'm going to go out there and do this. I'm going to go out there and do that. You need to stay here and stay humble. So you know where you're coming from. You know what you've done. You know the work you've put in. Go out and do your best. So, yeah, you can believe in yourself, but I think believing in yourself and having an ego are two different things. And we've kind of touched on the topic of fit. I think fit's very important. We have some people that have kind of egos on our team, but they joke about it more than they're like, yeah, look at me, you know? So some of the ones that we've had in the past that did have rampant, out of control egos, it was a lot of conversations about this is how you're hurting everything around you right now. So a lot of what we do related to this stuff is it comes through conversations. Again, it's a small school kind of mentality, but connecting with the students and talking through stuff. I tell all of our students, and I'll shut up after this, I tell all of our students, I can give you a lot of advice on a lot of things because I've messed up a lot of things in my life. Let's talk about stuff, you know? So that's a big thing for us.
Volunteer work. That's it. Take your students out. Take them out to your community. Take them out to the bad parts of your community. Show them. And don't just show them. Don't let it be like almost cussed. Don't let it be like an aquarium visit, right? Make them go and engage. Have them do landscaping. Have them work potlucks. Have them go out and work in the health centers in the area. Well, maybe not now because COVID's dying down, but obviously we had to cut back on community work while COVID was happening, and it really made me sad because it's an eye-opening experience for a lot of the students that come from more privileged lifestyles. And I think that when they're able to look back and I think you put it very eloquently, Eugene, in the sense of what ego and pride is. If they're able to look back on their life and really truly count the blessings that they've had, having a house every day, having food on the table, having parents that help pay for college even, I think that it's much easier to manage that pride moving forward because now they have something to bless themselves on in that sense. And I think that when they have that kind of eye-opening experience, especially with their peers on the team, and you sort of center a discussion and a engagement around that, it really builds everyone's emotional intelligence. And that's something we haven't really touched on much while we've been in this session, but it is so important to grow emotionally while you're in college and grow your emotional intelligence. Any ways that you can find to do that with your team is going to leave the most impact that you possibly can on the roster.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. And I want to touch a little bit more on like in the moment situations. I think we've talked a lot about being proactive and making sure that we're trying to settle these things before they come about. But there is moments in time that people tilt right in game. And the big thing for me is just pulling them aside for a second, letting them take a deep breath between that game and remind them, hey, look, this is going to affect the rest of your team. If if you're going to let this mess with you, it's going to mess with the whole team. And you wouldn't want, them messing up your game. Let's try to make sure we're moving forward and go healthy through the rest of this game. Once the game's over or once the match is over, then we can discuss solutions and things like that and what's actually going on through your head. But for right now, just take that deep breath, calm down, slow that heart rate down, get back into the groove of game. The next goal in Rocket League or, the next point in Overwatch, whatever it might be, that's what we're focused on right now. Whatever happened, just happened. Let's let it go. We can discuss how to fix it better when we're doing film review or something like that. That way it doesn't happen again. But the idea is to, just get yourself recentered for that moment. But then you'd have those longer conversations after those moments if you have to. So, you don't have to repeat those processes over and over and over. And through time and through that experience, they're going to learn how to do those things on their own. So.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think touching on this, we've had a couple different questions about the physiological part of mental wellness, whether that be exercise, sleep, diet, things like that. I don't want to try to overly summarize a few questions. So if someone has something very specific that we don't touch on, please feel free to ask again. But how do you guys work with your players on developing healthy physical habits that will then translate to better mental wellness?
Okay, we're part of athletics, so we actually have a dedicated facility for student athletes, the weight room, which we are able to use at least a couple hours a week that we can actually use. But we also just go to the rec room that's open to all students every now and again, just to enjoy ourselves. If it's just bicycle riding or going to the pool and swimming or anything like that, we make sure that they understand physical health and how it's important to their mental health as well. We have an athletic trainer that comes over and talks to them about that kind of thing too and how it can relate. And then lastly, or because we're under athletics, if they want to talk about nutrition, our cafeteria or Bears Den, they actually have a nutrition plan for all the different athletes and the needs of the program. So, it might be slightly different depending on, if you're a baseball player versus, an esports player, but they want to make sure that they're catering to those needs. So,
you can lead a horse to water. You can't make it drink. I learned that very heavily this past year. You can show your students all the benefits of being healthy and going out and exercising, doing everything that they can, but what they do on their own time is with their own time, and you have to make them realize the value in doing it. So what we do with our program is pretty loose right now. We're going back to the model that we did pre-quarantine, which is we have an hour and a half every single week where our entire program works out together, not teams, program as a whole. And at the beginning of the year, I teach people how to use machines. I wrestled a lot growing up and in high school, so I teach people how to use machines. The ins and outs and working out in the first session, but they spend 15 minutes warming up, they spend 30 minutes working out, and then afterwards we spend 45 minutes as a program. We take all the captains, managers, round everyone up, and we do something fun together as a program. We've played ultimate frisbee, we've played badminton, we've played like a 40-person dodgeball game, which was incredibly fun. Basketball, knockout, do something fun with the whole program so that your League of Legends team isn't just interacting with League of Legends. Now they're facing off against Overwatch, and you're having that interconnection go on where people on other parts of the program are engaging with each other in a fun and healthy way. And it really shows. Then you create opportunities for them to go out and want to do that with other people in the program on their weekends off when they're not going and doing anything. So highly recommend that.
That one of the things that we're working towards, we were doing in-person workouts right before COVID hit, but then COVID hit. So we're going to get back to that. That was just 2 hours each week in our fitness center. We were doing it by teams, but we had the discussion, similar to what Chase just said, of doing it. We're going to combine the teams together because they're the only ones with the workout requirement to have here are the two different options for the 2 hour blocks. Sign up for them. You're going to go to them. The workout plan is made for us by the director of our fitness center, very much based on cardiovascular strength, core strength, back, that kind of, a lot of sitting muscles, but the concept that you touched on, Chase, is a big thing that we've been talking about, me and my student staff, is like the dodgeball. A few people mentioned kickball in chat. Like what we want to do, and we haven't reached out to other schools about this yet, but what we want to do is there are a lot of other schools in the DFW Metroplex. Depending on the game, if we were to try to play them in Overwatch or in FIFA, we might win, they might win, depending on the title. Let's play something dumb and fun. Let's challenge another esports program to kickball. And then we're going to get students together. Some of them might already know each other, but get out and have some fun where we are repping our school. We're going to have the pride, but it's also we're getting out and doing something together. We talk to our students a lot about healthy body, healthy brain. You got to be active. I don't care if you go to the gym or not, but walk around campus. If you're making a phone call outside the fitness center, our rooms are in the fitness center. Walk back and forth along the building instead of just standing there and leaning. Just move. Because when you're in motion, your brain's going a lot more too. So we try to help with little things, little individual things, but we're trying to build some more structural things in as well. But like big, dumb fun is what we've talked a lot about, me and my student staff. Stuff that when our players hear it, they could be like, yeah, I want to do that. Not like, oh, I guess we're doing that,
Yeah, those are awesome ideas. I guess I'll throw a slightly different idea in the ring, which is just that I think it's important to get people out. But for me, when I was in college, I didn't exercise almost at all. And I felt like when there were more official things with groups of people, I was kind of intimidated. I didn't want to go play kickball with people and then have to run up and miss the ball. And then like, I imagine it like Charlie Brown where I go to kick the ball and then it's messy. So that was very intimidating for me. But since I've kind of grown into adulthood, I found just my friends inviting me out casually was really effective for me. I've started to develop just slow habits. Like I started where I wasn't active at all. And then when quarantine hit, I started walking. And then my walks got long enough that I'm like, we got to speed this up a little bit. Let's run a little bit. And then it kind of went from there. So I found that just inviting my players out, even just like individually, like if 4 of us want to go running together, it's great. If 4 of us want to go to the gym, that's great. And I think that helps just kind of, again, lead by example. Sleep schedule, I'm really good at too now. That wasn't always before, but now I sleep a bunch. Hard to lead by example sleeping because they cannot see you, I hope. But I try to encourage that, just let them know that I do that and share the benefits that it's had with me. I think I think some people connect with the science and they're like, wow, statistically this will help me. I love it. And some people are like, oh, Coach Josh sleeps a bunch and he likes it. Maybe I'll try it, So different options to connect with different people. But I think all of those ideas are excellent. I think we probably have time for one more question. Unfortunately, I wish we had time for more. I think, let me scroll up. I saw one that I thought was really good by Jessica. Have your players ever found it hard to know the lines between being supportive as a role model and a leader and being supportive as a peer and a friend? And I think that applies to us as coaches as well, especially for a lot of the coaches that are new to the industry or are younger in their 20s. I think the line between being a role model and a leader and the line between being a peer and a friend, it's hard to balance that, right? And you want to make sure that you do that right, where you're connecting with your players as people, but also kind of being that leader, steering them in the right direction. Maybe
I can. It is a bit easier for me because I'm older. I'm not like in my 20s or my 30s. But a big thing for me is like, and this is going to sound harsher than I want it to, but saying no. Like that's one of the reasons that we put such an emphasis on getting our students to arrange going out for meals, because there are times it's like, I love food and I love that kind of food and I'm free that time, but I'm not going to go to all the stuff because I want them to be with them. And not like when I'm there, it's a treat. I'm not saying it like that, but like it's a bit more like I'm not a buddy that's always just hanging out. That's one little thing that we do. Another one in Discord. I don't have 2 Discords. I have like my Discord, and that's what I use with my friends, and also what I use for work. But it's also like with students that are like, "Hey, do you want to play World of Warcraft?" And it's like, yeah, let's get other people in play, and not like let's link up and play directly together. Like a lot of things like that. So like, not always saying no, but sometimes saying, well, I can't do that, but let's do this instead, to show that there are boundaries, on top of saying, don't forget that I can't do everything with you because I have a role on campus and blah, 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 that kind of stuff.
I just want to say you said the key word boundaries. Like that's super important. Like making sure you know your own boundaries, but also allowing them to know their boundaries. That plays along with their own mental health as well. But for us specifically, is just knowing our own boundaries. And a lot of people growing up, and especially when you're going from your teens to your 20s, you may not even know what your own boundaries are yet. So discussing those things and talking about those things is a huge thing, I would say.
Awesome. I'm not sure if Chase is here. Oh, Chase is back.
I thought he just like yeeted out. I was like, yo.
Don't know what happened. I was here and then I wasn't.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
Chase.
So I mean, for me, I think boundaries is important too, Travis, to echo your sentiment. I started coaching at 23, 24. So I was telling my students, I'm just 1 to 2 years out of the path that you're starting right now out of college. I'm holding the lantern and showing you where to go. But you have to give me the respect that at the time as the head coach of the program to make sure that we can follow this path together. I think that the best way that I sort of separate that is telling them, knowing when it's all right to joke around and knowing when it's okay to have fun and knowing when we need to be serious and sit down and engage in conversations. And they do a very good, I would say our program now, especially the juniors and seniors in our program do a very good job of recognizing that line. And at first it's hard because you're the only person creating the culture you're asking 15, 20, 30 students to buy into. Once you get juniors and seniors that have been in your program for a bit, they can now disseminate that culture and show and experience, really show the experience of the culture and set that example. So making sure that I'm going back to boot camp again, our boot camp at the beginning of the year and kind of the first few weeks, I make sure to take captains out for lunch and I take coaches out for lunch. Same with managers. We all sit down and we talk, and that's in those informal environments really the best way to sort of engage in that system. They know, all of my students know, they all have my phone number. Every single person has my personal phone number because when I was in college, my hall director gave me his personal number because I didn't have very trustworthy parents, let's put it that way. And he said, if you are ever in an uncomfortable situation, or if you are ever feeling like you have no one that you can call and you are on your last line of support, you should be able to call me. And you call me and I will make sure that I am there for you. And having that as in the back of their mind, knowing that you're there for them, both as a friend and as a mentor, is imperative, and it's going to make them want to pay that experience forward. Someone that I look up to very, very greatly that was a hall director at Ball State University. His name is Chris Moore. He told me, in life, you should always have a mentor, friends that are on the same level as you, and colleagues that you're trying to be competitive and grow with, and then mentees that you're teaching what your mentor and what your colleagues are teaching. You should have all three of those parts of your life. You should have friends, you should have mentors, mentees that are all fitting into those categories so that you can grow your emotional intelligence as a person. And I think when you're able to, it's hard because there's gray lines in those areas, but when you're able to set that example and show what that looks like rather than just talk about it, that's really the best way to set those lines and those boundaries from what I found.
Awesome. Yeah. Super good points all around. So much that we didn't get to touch on. A bunch of questions that we didn't get to touch on yet. But thank you so much to the panelists. I really appreciate it. Again, please feel free to message any of us if you have any questions or want to talk more. And again, not to rag on any of the panelists, but I don't think any of us are mental health professionals. And obviously, there's tons of other people in NACE that are happy to talk about it. So I think the more we just talk and communicate with each other, share ideas, it's great all around. So definitely recommend just bringing it up more in the NACE Discord and chatting with each other. But we're way over time now. People have other panels to get to, but thank you so much for attending. And we hope to see you guys next time.